Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. All right. Thanks for coming on. We're going to do part one of chapter four, and then we'll proceed with our second sessions. I do have some study guides for chapter three and chapter four that I sent out, and this may have two parts to it, but it's one of those crucial ones. You do have a percentage of the test that really reference from learning styles and principles. So chapter four is going to be one of those that we really hone into, and we start to adapt when you are coming into the building. And so once we learn them, we can kind of visually kind of analyze which one has what learning style and learning intelligence. So you may hear that also. This falls within teaching methodologies. You'll hear that throughout your whole career, which is methods of teaching. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So as we move to our critical concept, it says traditional academia has taught in ways that appeal to basically two intelligence, either verbal linguistic or logical mathematics. So they either in the past they get it better when you break it down, okay, or they get it better when you put it in a to-do list, adding numbers. For me, I'm a logical, it has to make sense to me type of person. And I'm a mathematical person, which means if you give me something that requires steps, any kind of list, any kind of task, I got it. You don't have to micromanage me. I'm gonna go down my list and I'm gonna come back to you with it done. And so usually they put students into those two categories, but there are so many other categories in between. All right. Even when we deliver our message, when it comes to us teaching, we got to make sure that we are at least touching at least four of these learning styles that you're going to learn about. In the trainings that I do for continuing education for Tennessee, we do review all of them, but at the same time, you have to at least do at least four in your planning for your classroom, because you want to touch everybody to get a little piece of something. And ultimately, when that student leaves for the day, you want them to say, I learned something. And so everybody's not going to learn the same, but you want them to be like, I learned something. And so that's why sometimes I do the top 10, the top four. If it's five people, everybody give me something that they learned today. And I want to see if they can retrieve the information, but also I'm checking myself. Did I teach? Did I perform and do my job? Because if they did, no matter how well the lesson was, it's a great day. If the students cannot retain the information, I've done nothing. Okay. So a lot of times when I'm asking that, I'm just trying to see if they retain it or how much. I'm also trying to see where do I need to make changes. Um, and then also, how well did I do? Without asking them how well did I do. How well I did is going to show on how well they perform. And so I truly believe that. I've noticed last night that one of our students would give direction. I said, okay, I like that she's giving direction, because in the past couple of weeks, that student was unable to give direction because they didn't know. They knew how to do it, but they didn't know actual procedure. And I'm seeing 2 weeks later, they actually know steps and procedure. That basically tells me I need to go a little bit more logical with that student. And I started having that student tell me, walk me through. And so as that student started to walk me through, it started to develop that, hey, I need to really know my steps. So this person may do better in the future with checklists, mathematical, anything that has to do with numbers, procedure, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whether it's verbal or nonverbal. And so it's just I'm retaining more information. I'm always analyzing on what I can do better. So that particular student that was given direction, I was pleased because 2 weeks ago, that student didn't know how to give direction. They didn't know the steps. So by us having to do some drills, even when they didn't want to, that student now can retain the information. So it's a success. It's a win-win for us all.
Right.
Yeah. So let's look at desired performance goals for this chapter. We're going to list the 4 important steps in learning, explain 8 distinct intelligence and how they impact learning. And while we look at these 8 intelligence, any of these could be in our classroom. Now we get down to the nitty gritty. But what I want to also, while we go over these, I want you to find yourself. Find the way that you learn, and that's gonna be amazing, because how you learn, you have to understand it, and then that's how then you'll be able to teach. You got to know how you learn. And then it said list the benefits of identifying learning styles for students. And I'm always identifying how someone learns, when they learn, what's the best times that they learn. We look at the master educator. We consider 4 important steps in learning into each lesson. We determine their students' learning styles and teach to them. So, which means you can't copy and paste somebody else's lesson from, oh, she took this class, I can just use her notes. Her notes were probably built for that particular class. You have to build for your class. And so in every class, it's not going to be the same. All right. So it has been a common thing to share lesson plans. You do them once, everybody got them. But it's great. When you get a lesson plan, you're going to have to tweak it to that classroom, because you're going to have different personalities in each class, different intelligences when it comes to learning, and you have to teach to their learning style. All right? You got to teach to that. So sometimes we have to bring it down and then bring them up. Sometimes we got to go up a little higher ourselves. Okay? So it depends. We got to check who's sitting in our classroom, who's our audience. And then we got to incorporate a variety of delivery methods into every lesson. So yeah, we got to work. Okay. We got to do some work, which means a lot of time we're already doing it, but now we're calling it something. Okay. So the role of an educator, this is our role. We have to be the facilitator. We initiate the learning. I did have to tell a student, I'm the teacher. Wow. And some people will be like, oh, but I have to make that known. I'm the teacher. And if I'm the teacher, I'm the one doing the teaching. It is a lack of educator, I would say, responsibility if you're allowing other students to teach other students. Now, there does come a time where peer training comes about, but that is after the foundation has been set by the educator. So I do take it it's my responsibility. I don't care if I want to learn that from her. Well, she doesn't know it. Until I know that she knows it, that's when I will assign her as your peer trainer. Mm-hmm. But that pretty much, I'm teaching her this, I'm teaching her that. No, I'm the teacher. My job is to make sure that I facilitate this lesson to your learning style, and your job is to receive it, practice, and take it to use and pass the exam or move on into the salon. But it has to be known that I am the facilitator. So sometimes we'll get students who are very talented, and we will almost misuse them to go and facilitate our classrooms. And they will walk in the job of facilitator. They will walk in the job of educator when that's not their job. So I just want to do my job, and I want to be the facilitator. I want the students to say, Miss Cox taught me. If she didn't do nothing else, she taught me. And it's responsible of us as educators to set the foundation. So if any initial teaching is going to go down, I'm going to do the teaching. I'm not going to pass that off to a student. Once I have set the foundation, and I may say this student has a gift in this, they do this really well, they have mastered this, they do this really well, I may set them as peer trainers, but it has to be established who's the educator in the room. And many of times I've been doing my journey as a director of a program. I have seen educators come in, and because a student knew how to do it, they'll let the student do it. Mm-hmm. And on down the line, there becomes a problem because the students that should be listening to you, they're listening to their student, to their colleague. And so you don't have control of the classroom. And then you try to go in and with an authoritative attitude, and that just kills the mood, because now you want to show up and be the boss. Well, you should have showed up and been the boss when it was time to teach. And so we'll find a lot of that. I don't want educators to get lost in and get comfortable. Oh, I'm gonna let her show. I'm gonna let her do it. No, students pay tuition, no matter what course they have. For the educator, you get paid to be the educator, to lead in facilitation. That means you're gonna set the groundwork for what's to go on in the classroom. Your voice is the one that decides everything in that classroom. You are the learning catalyst, okay? Which means you're the one that takes them into learning, to further them, to get them to learn. You are the one to answer the questions. You are the one to make them think. And so a lot of times when we talk about notes, and that's on your lesson plan, we talk about notes. They may not know the questions because they're getting introduced, but you should have some questions that they should be asking. In your teaching style, you can drop those questions in, or you can put those questions on the board. And then that it becomes a catalyst. You're pushing them to a certain point, and you are the learning catalyst. You're the one giving them questions, asking. You're the one doing the exams. You're the one quizzing them. And the learning styles defined. So we should define the learning styles. And when we talk about learning styles, let me give you an example. I'm a mathematical learner. I'm a logical mathematical learner. It got to make sense to me. Like last night, the student was talking and it sounded good to her. It was really fluff. Okay. It sounded good to her, but I was saying that don't make no sense. And some students would have been like, oh, because it sounds good, oh, she must be right. But I'm like, nah, it got to make sense, baby girl. It don't make any sense. And so a lot of times when you deal with people, you can tell when somebody's sugar and jiving. And, it's like, oh, no, that don't make any sense. It has to make some form of sense. And if not, I'm going to want you to explain it. So you can explain to me why you think that, because it don't, A and B ain't adding up to me. So a lot of times it is to bring clarity, but the learning styles, think about it. Somebody may learn better with music on. You got a person that always like to study. They study, but they study with music on. And they say they study. Okay, that is actually a learning style. It's called a rhythm musical learning style, which means that student learns with some kind of beat, pattern, some kind of rhythm in the background. And you have children, you may walk in their rooms and say, how are you studying with all this music on? That's how they study. And they can probably tell you everything that the teacher said because it was a rhythm beat in the background. We can't explain it. It out of our pay grade, but you do have people that learn with sound. They have to have a rhythm or something in the background. Also, you have individuals like me. I'm a mathematical person, so anything that has to do with steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I can recall it, and I can count money well. And I retrieve information through numbers. And so when we talk about, we had the knowledge tree on the board, and it was state board prep. We had numbers up there. 16. Okay, 16 to me reference two things when it comes to the state board. The number 16. 16 hours for a braid certification and 16 hours that educators need of continuing education to renew their license. 16. If they did the number 300, is to me is easy. 300 references a few things with the state board. So I learn around numbers. 300 for instructor training, 300 for manicuring, no, 300 for lashes, 300 for natural hair, so 300 for crossover. I mean, that's what I reference. And that's my learning style. Very logical, very mathematical. And sometimes the simple stuff, it's like I have to think about it. I was like, well, hold on. Oh, I don't understand it. It should be easy to understand, but you do have some people that got book sense and you got people that don't have street sense. I may be one of those. So that's my learning style. And because I know my learning style, I tend to retrieve information like that. And then I'm always analyzing who's in my class and how my students learn, because although that's how I learn, they may not be how my students learn. So I may be good with big words, but I won't use those huge words with my students. I'm not trying to prove that I know how to read and I know how to say stuff. That's not, we're not in competition with the student, but I may use smaller words and build them up to bigger words. You know what I'm saying? And so I have to learn how my students learn. So every class is going to be a little different. Analytical presentation style. So now we're talking about how you should teach. Should I start off like this, just lecture, or should I go in with questions? I personally like to put stuff on the board. I like to have notes. So that means I'm going to do a little homework before we come into the classroom. And we're having a theory day. I'm going to do a little homework. And when I teach instructors, I'm going to teach you to prepare your notes. You can follow your notes. And I put a lot of time, my key points on the board. And as I'm teaching, I may have a structure right there on the podium, but I'm able to walk around and catch my key points and build conversation and lecture off of those key points on the board. And the students are able to follow me. And sometimes in my quizzes, in my tests, I may do all numbers. I may do fill in the blank. I may do matches. One quiz, I may do a verbal quiz, which means I'm going to give everybody a question, and every question is going to be a point. I may have 5 students. I may have 20 questions. And so that means each student gets 4 questions. And I may say each question is worth 25% of your grade. So if they get 4 of them right, you made 100. If you miss, so that a lot of times, because I've had students that don't do good with physical tests or physical quizzes. And so I switch it up to give that student an opportunity, like a head start, so they won't feel like I'm just not getting it. So I will switch up my quizzes. Now the test is probably going to be online or on paper, but the quizzes, I would give that student opportunity to partner with someone so that it can just kind of build their grade and take them out of that shyness and just kind of build them up a little bit. Because most of the time, students that don't do well on paper, they try to have distraction. They distract. And so I don't want those distractions in the classroom. So I observe and learn how they learn. And then I can present many activities, games, things like that on how they learn. That's not changing the information. I'm just flipping how they learn. So, and sometimes, even though we teach adult learners the elementary stuff, they don't even know the same stuff that kids getting in school. I just flipped it and you get the same thing in adult education. So, and Milady is written, from what I know, on the textbooks on the 8th grade level.
Mm.
So, it's like they are, if they're kids in middle school, you are learning just like they're learning. So, yeah, the instructor exam is written on a higher level. Why? I don't know. So with the instructor exam, we have to be real detailed in our studying, because we do know it's written on a higher level. It is going to get rewritten sometime, I think 25, 26. But when that time comes, they'll let everybody know.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's look at our learning styles and comparable style. I am an interactive learner and an interactive teacher. I want my students to talk back to me when I teach. A lecture is going to put me to sleep. That's where you just talk, 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 talk,
Mm-hmm.
and talk, 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 talk. And when we do virtual, sometimes, you shouldn't talk more than 45 to 50 minutes without taking a break. So that's why sometimes when we get to an hour, we need to take a break, and then we need to come back. So I like to do that, and sporadically in my classroom, especially when I feel like the people on the other side are getting weary of just listening. But even in the classrooms, I like interactive, which means I'm telling them from jump. Talk to me. I'm going to ask questions, and I may ask questions, or I may ask them, do you have any questions before we start this chapter? What do you want to know? Or I may tell them, tell me everything you know about finger wave before we start this chapter on finger wave. And I'm grabbing what they already know. And I'm say, well, hold on, because I'm going to get to that part in the lecture, and it's going to be an answer to your question. So now you got them hanging on because they're looking for those answers to those questions they had.
Okay.
And I may say, I'm going to give you a review after this lecture. So hold on, take notes. And some things that I want them to know, I will say, take note. Here we go, take note. So you will learn your style. When it comes to the Department of Education in Tennessee, literally, we are not supposed to tell students to read. And then as adult learners, they'll get bored because they're not in kindergarten. That method is not going to work. There may be different ones that have literacy issues. And then somebody may stutter, somebody who can't read, somebody who can't pronounce the words. And so all of those factors come in and will discourage them from completing the program. It'll make them want to quit. And so what we cannot do is like call them out and make fun of a disability. And we got a couple of chapters coming on down the line where we're talking about the barriers and disabilities. And one of those is you making sure that you don't call them out for embarrassment. And so a lot of them are not willing to read. They'll get mad because you're asking them to read, but they don't, probably can know some words, but everybody got here differently. Somebody probably didn't go through all those English classes in high school. Somebody probably had to drop at 9th or 10th grade. You never know. So that's why we have to do our work. And if somebody wants to volunteer, amazing. But remember, they can read at home. And so I always say, when it comes to educators, you don't want to read out the book to adults. You want to do your homework, get your lesson together, have your key points, your notes, and you can put those notes on the board. But we're never going to go word for word at the book, because that's going to bore the person that's sitting in the audience. And so that's something based on your generation, the people that are in your classroom, we ain't gonna do it. Last night group is so much energy. If I would have started reading out of a book, they would have fell asleep.
Mm-hmm.
They were ready to go. Last night was a good night. They were ready to go. They was working. Still did some lesson reference, some verbal lesson reference. They did hands-on. And so they were ready to roll. And so when you look at the format, you got dynamic monitor, imaginative, you have common sense coach, and analytical teach. So pretty much you usually find out which one am I, which one am I, and I ask my teachers to always find out where you are before we try to find out where the students are, because you can give your experience. You can say, well, I'm not a, and sometimes it'll relate to the classroom. Like I'll tell my students, oh, don't worry about that, because sometimes my words and my letters get crossed up too. And then they go, what? I'll say, yeah, ain't nobody perfect, but it takes practice to get to a certain place. So yeah, my words, my letters get crossed up as well. And that falls into dyslexic categories. And I tell them it's okay. I deal with that too, and sometimes they'll be like, wow, it'll change the whole dynamic of their student, because the instructor educator relates to something they had going on. A lot of times in adult education, they don't know that they've had a learning issue or disability, because no one has ever paid that much attention to them. And so they'll make it all the way through high school, some 1 or 2 college semesters, and be like, what just happened? Because they were pushed. It's almost like crossed over. They were just pushed on through, and nobody identified those issues that person really need extra help on. And sometimes it catches with us. And if there are learning disabilities or disability barriers, we can call PSI, the testing agency. And as long as my student has documentation of those learning disabilities, they're supposed to adapt that test to it. All right. And so it's good to always share that with our students as well. So interactive learners, they do best when they ask why. So you have a person I always want to know why, they're probably an interactive learner. Reader, listener, these individuals ask what you're talking about. What? So for me yesterday, I was listening, and sometimes I take my glasses off. I feel like I can hear better. But sometimes I hear people say they put their glasses on, they feel like they can hear better. And it does. I don't know, that's with people that wear glasses. But for me, I wanted her to slow down, because I was listening carefully to what she was saying. And I knew it was kind of fluff. He was adding some fluff to it because it didn't make any sense. So there I am. I'm a listener. And then a systemic is learners that sit down and study. They get more out of the information when they can connect with what they are studying. You have to get this person a real life circumstance. And so if you're talking about a rude client, you may have to have an experience that says this is how you will respond to that. See, for example, true story, or you may say true story. This is what happened to me. So now you're bringing story, you bringing your experience into the classroom to make them realize it. Somebody's going to get it, because I have to bring my experience in for them to get it. Others would say, okay, I understand, but somebody else will say, you're going to have to give me an example. And sometimes I say that as well. Give me an example. Help me out a little bit. And that's how some students will understand. And that sticks with them. That story sticks with them before anything in the book sticks with them. Yes. And then you have intuitive learners. They ask, what if? So what if we did it this way? And why we got to have slide, lift, squeeze, calm down as the finger wave procedure? And why we got to go this way to start it? Why we can't go that way? I would challenge every instructor before you teach, figure out what every question they will ask on finger wave and have an answer for it. I tell people, I said, going backwards, you're going against the grain. So your what ifs, when that person what if said, what if I go this way? I said, well, you're going against the grain. It's gonna make it harder. It's gonna be harder for you creating that way. So let's go with the hair flow and move in, slide. I may even do a demo. And they was like, oh, okay, I get it. So you just may have those individuals that they're not challenging. They just want to know, okay, I need to go this way, because if I go that way, it's going to look, it's not going to look right. It's going to be a harder time getting to my final result. So you'll have those intuitive learners. And I tell students this, it's okay to ask questions. And I'm not going to get mad at you if you don't agree with me. This is a learning classroom. Everybody's not going to agree with the teacher, and the teacher's not going to agree with everybody else. But I want it to be a safe space that you can say what you want to say without getting penalized. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And feeling some type of way. And sometimes educators could be immature in that fact. Well, because someone doesn't agree with them or the student doesn't like them, they feel some type of way. And I'm like, we got to get out of that because we're supposed to be teaching without barriers. And if educators feel that way, they may be likely not to teach that student as effectively as they teach everybody else. So we got to be mindful of all the ways the students learn. And even if you get questions of what if, but what if, answer them. That's what they're there for. You're facilitating learning, and you have to answer those and even give examples or even life experiences so they can understand. Let's look at sensory learning styles. Visual, you have people look, just show me. And once you show them, they get it. We got visual students. We do. And some of them like to pick it up visual, but have a hard time understanding how they got that way. And so sometimes they learn a little backwards. They learn visual and then they start breaking it down. And then you got some people that like to break it down and then they get into the learning. You got auditory, they process information by what they hear. They want to record the classes. Okay. They want to listen. They want to hear all the information. I understand when I hear you break it down to me. And then you got kinesthetic, process information, what they do. Okay. I want to, let me try it. You have a person like that. Okay. I think I get it. Let me try it. Let me try it first. And sometimes that is a person, they're trying it, then they go back and process the information. They'll try it again. Okay. Can you show me now? That's a kinesthetic person. And a lot of times the kinesthetic person has to touch. And so even in the classroom, I think I need to order these little objects that you can build different things with.
Mm-hmm.
There, you look on Amazon, it's kinesthetic learning tools. Well, as you're teaching, instead of a person picking up their phone, they can have these stress balls, they can build little things. And you may think, sometimes people may think they're into that phone, they ain't paying no attention to me. Well, give them something else. Give them a puzzle. While you're teaching, there's a puzzle or something they have to put together. And let me tell you, you may think that person is not listening, but that person can tell you everything you said because they have channeled the touch. They have, you have to touch something. So if we don't want them in their phones, we got to have provide something else for them. And so a lot of times it is stress balls or building blocks. And remember, that comes from kindergarten. But it's the learning aspect trickles over as adult in adult learning. So they don't even know that you're catching their attention by just placing a stress ball on the table. Okay. And saying, hey, it's free for you guys to use stress ball as I'm teaching if you feel more comfortable. And you'll see them grab it. They'll always go for the stress balls. Here's the retaining of information. 10% of what we read. So us telling them to read, they still not learning it. Retaining the information means it's in there, it's stuck, it's up, it's in the brain. So all because you telling them to read it, that don't mean that they learning it. They only recall 10%. They may say, I think I've heard of that somewhere. I don't know where, but they can't tell you nothing. They just say they think they heard of it. That's the 10%. 20% of what we hear. So now I'm giving them a reading assignment at home. I'm giving them a lecture at school, 30% of what they see, and I'm demoing it, 50% of what they see and hear. So as you're lecturing and showing them how to do something, say if you do Marcel curls or you do a flat iron press or something of that nature, you're teaching and you're doing, the students are learning 50% of that. But now start talking right on the board and do, here we go. And so if you're touching the client, speaking about what you're doing, performing the service, and got some notes on the board or get them a handout, they have retrieved 90% of what you said. They can go back, do it again, and now show somebody what you did and tell them what you said. And so it's going to take more than you just giving them something. So that's why I do like to have conversation in our treatment rooms. And I use the chalkboard with different color chalk. It is very intentional why I do that. Because for those that have to have something on the board, it's on the board. Then let's go in the treatment room because the person that want to do, let's do it. And then I'm going to talk as well. And so now they see, they hear, they got some notes. We have given it to them in different ways. And so even if it's a video, you don't physically do something, it's a video. We may infuse essential oils last week. So doing some kind of hands-on activity. Last night we made toner. They retrieve it. And so I'm gonna ask them again about that. What's the formula for that toner? I'm gonna ask them again tonight because of they seen it and I spoke it and we made it. It should be locked in. It should be locked in. So this is the retaining of the information. And if we're the facilitator, we got to be the one leading in the information. If someone else is leading in the information, they're learning more from the student. What are they paying you for? All right. That's what we have to look at. 4 steps in learning. There's a desire, input and environment, assimilation, and repeating. There has to be a desire to learn. So this is why sometimes I ask, what y'all want to learn? Okay. This is what we're going over this week, but is there anything else y'all want to learn? We can do one extra thing. Has to be a desire in learning. And input and environment. I got to be able to put some in them. I got to get the classroom atmosphere together. Assimilation, now there's understanding, and then they can repeat it. If we get to the point of desire, I want to learn, okay? And then taking that information in and realistic, putting it into place and saying, okay, I understand it. And then I can start to repeat it. Then we have learning taking place. When we talk about multiple intelligence, some people may say how we are smart versus how smart we are. I think every intelligence has a level of smartness, okay? A level of, when I say intelligence, we also talk about learning styles. So the level of intelligence of each individual can be different, and you'll never have 2 people that learn the same. Okay. There's always something. They may have something in common where they say across the board, yeah, we're both logical. But then each one may learn different things logically. Okay. Here's the prerequisites for intelligence: skills to resolve problems, ability to create a product, and potential for finding or creating a problem. Okay. And so those are the prerequisites. Here are your 8 intelligence identified, which means this is where we also need to find ourselves. The intelligence is going to be how you learn. So you got verbal, linguistic people. Okay. I need my teacher to talk to me. Bodily kinesthetic. They like to touch. They're huggers probably. They sit by. Their shoulders are gonna probably when they lean on you or something. Or when you're teaching, this person gotta have something in their hand. Logical, mathematical. This person wants it explained. They also are good with tasks, steps, procedures, numbers, money, and that's counting money. Visual, spatial, which means it's going to click for this person when they see you do it. When you give them a video, when they see a picture, it's going to click. Interpersonal, intrapersonal, which means we're good in groups. And the other one, I would rather work alone. So you got those students that will work good in groups because they may not perform as well by themselves, but they work good in groups to kind of bounce ideas off and just to have a supportive person. So if you have students that work good in groups, their class is probably going to do a lot of group assignments. Then you got someone intrapersonal that does not like being in groups. You know what? Just give my assignment. I'd rather yay or nay or 100 or zero by myself. I can't do the groups. And then you got someone who's a naturalist. Man, any kind of sunlight, going outside to study a lesson under the trees, sitting at the picnic table and learning and reading. This person eats this up. They get recharged when they take their shoes off and their feet is in the grass and they can go over their terms. This eats that up. So how can we, if we got a naturalist in our classroom, how can we adapt to them? I'm gonna open the blind and let the sunlight in. I may open the door and let fresh air in. Also, I may say after lunch, y'all, since we are on healthy body, healthy mind chapter, let's go out and take a walk. And while they're walking, we're all walking together. Let's review terms, do study questions, see how well this, and watch this person really explode and they be in their element. That's a naturalist, somebody that learns better connected to nature. All right. Here's your verbal. Let's see where we are on time. We're doing pretty good. And this is part one. So we will, once we finish these, we will pick back up next week and close out part two. But part one is going to definitely be an eye opener because we have to identify which one of these do we stand in, or do we have multiple intelligence? Is there at least two or three that explains us? So looking at the verbal, word wise, very wordy people. They like the words, okay? How they learn best, okay? You can't give them the simple stuff. They're like, they ain't do nothing. You're like, what you mean? I gave you everything. And the chapter may not even be complex, but you have to give them maybe an extra assignment or have some extra, you may have to pack the course with a little extra because this person wants a really well-rounded breakdown of the subject. Career choices, famous people, okay? This person is just verbal. They like words and they are going to be there early for your presentation. They're probably also a note taker. Okay. When you have verbal students, you got some teaching ideas. You're going to use graphics and posters, slogans, word games, affirmations, metaphors, and paraphrasing. Those are just some activities for that person. Study tips for this person, reading and highlighting the text. They like to read and highlight. I do that a lot. And rewriting the notes. So I may take some down and I may rewrite them later. And by me writing the notes, I can learn better. And these people also will debate. Okay. Have plays and they will debate. So which they would like to debate which one's better than the other one, so on. So you can start finding these characteristics in the students. You were like, okay, you have a verbal intelligence. And so since you have verbal intelligence, I see you doing this, you want to go back and forth. Let me build something where you'll be able to, like a game or activity where they will really intrigue this person and do like a mini debate about flat iron versus Marcel curls, just something, gel versus foam wrap, or one company relaxer versus another company relaxer. Something that students will have to do some research and then have to go back and forth on. Visual, how they learn best. career choices, famous people. And so the characteristics space wise, they learn best, hands on experience, mind mapping, window painting, which means that you bring them to the board and they get the drawing, the procedure. They don't put the words in, they draw the procedure. Okay, this step we're going to shampoo. This step we're going to towel dry. And so they would do that. Mind mapping, I would take the number 300 and everything that go along with 300, I'm going to put it on the board. Rearranging the classroom, teacher location, they may change their seat. They may take a couple of desks and move it around. They want to be in your view. Designing graphics, logos, flyer, um, ball toss review. So we get in a circle, toss the ball. I think we probably may do that next week as a review. And then dancing and physical energizers. So they may like rhythm also. Making mobiles, collages. They like projects. All right. And visualization techniques. So you show them, you're doing demos, and this person is absorbing it. They work in group to problem find or problem solve. They work well with others who have a likeness to how they learn. Um, Color coding things, organizing notes, and then also they like using pictures, mind maps, things of that nature. All right. And then when I look at here in study tips, you see these little things on the table, like the clappers, Play-Doh.
Yeah.
That's what you will have on the table for different learners. So if you don't want them to take their phone out, have something like this on the table. Allie used to you do the clapper every time you had a question, or every time we answered a question, or it was a good question, do the clapper. The Play-Doh, the Slinky, the Squeezy Ball, all these things help facilitate learning. They help you in keeping the attention of your students. Here's your logical mathematical intelligence. How they learn best. You see, we have tasks, budgets, expenses. We evaluate information. We're going to weigh which one is best, which coupon gives me the most money off. I like sequences. Let's brainstorm. The knowledge tree, which is our number game, and charts, learning how to read budgets and charts. These would be our people, a mathematical, logical. How we study, quiet setting, yes. Just leave me be. Leave me be. I can't focus with a whole lot of other stuff. Just leave me be. Considering why material is important. So I want to know the why. And I have a friend that wants to know, once you tell them why, they want to know why is that for you. So there's another why behind that. And journals. So yes, I do write a lot of stuff down, a lot of key events and things of that nature. Interpersonal, assigning workbook activities, having students recall personal feelings, or how you feel about that. Tell me about that. Arranging internet research projects, which mean may have a group of 3 things. What do you do first? Setting goals and priorities, giving alternatives and letting students choose, putting the choice back into the student hands so they don't feel like, especially that's important for adult learners, so they don't feel like you taking that freedom from them. Okay. Scheduling, reflection, and introspective. That's simply evaluations. Scheduling a time to just talk about how far they've come and how they've improved and things of that nature. Some of their study tips, studying in a quiet setting, or we just talked about that. Bodily kinesthetic, we said these are the ones that like touch. They can do role playing. Some of my ideas will be building models, choreographing a line dance, or practice a cheer. You can tell these students to create activities to help break down things, and playing charades and Pictionary. So by you adding different activities, you actually are making sure that every student has some type of learning intelligence connected to the classroom. You got to make it all make sense. Okay. Some study tips. I'm going to talk about 3: peer coaching, using flashcards, and applying material in a practical manner. They are practicing, but they're retrieving everything that you taught them to the practice that they have going on now. Interpersonal, okay? Interpersonal, INTER, is different from INTRA. INTRA that we just talked about, those individuals like to work by themselves. Interpersonal, those individuals like to work in a group. Okay. So we have more role playing, more team development, okay, more peer coaching activities because they're working in a group. So a shared knowledge and shared grades and things of that nature. Teaching ideas and activities, resolving case studies. For these individuals, they work as a group to resolve the issues and they motivate and plan well together. Partner studying, designing games. Then you have the rhythm music people, get them up out of their seats. A lot of times I say, look, we take the chants, the cheers, the line dance. I shared something the other day where my student tagged me in something from 2012. I was the director of Vatterott Career College at the time, and I had to fill in for somebody to somebody. I had to teach a class, and I needed to make sure they understood the procedure for manicure, pedicure. So I gave them like 30 minutes to come up with a dance, a team, chant, a cheer, anything. And they came up with a line dance. They went in from a skit into a line dance, and it was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I like that. But I remember that class learning a lot with music and creating a lot of dances to go along with what they were learning. Did we let them do it? Yes, because it kept them out of trouble and it gave us a way to figure out how they learn so we can adapt more to them. And you may have a group like that, and then the next group, no. But we were still able to give the information with no shortcuts. But when it came to activities, involved different activities that got them up and got them moving, and more activities that put them in a group. Um, Creating music in the classroom, so drums, beats, whatever. Playlists, get them to moving. These are rhythm learners. Putting vocabulary to music, any of your training to music. Okay. Um, Cheers and handshakes. We used to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
Your naturalist intelligence, you see how they are outside and learning, observing and recording observations. They can take pictures, classifying and categorizing. And I would put groups outside as well, teaching natural hair techniques. And so they like to be closer to nature, less chemicals as possible. And we've seen these types. They're probably wearing more natural based styles than commercial styles. There you can't classify them by color, but some people would classify them by color, hairstyle, naturalist. It is just a couple of people that fall organically, and you can pretty much tell where they are when they come in. And then other individuals, when you go and say, let's take a walk, or someone say, can we go outside today? That is a naturalist person. They will learn better. So I would do the review quiz outside. I have done the massage technique on the mannequins, take all the tripods, massages, and done that outside. They get to relax a little bit. Study tips for the naturalists, playing nature sounds, rewarding accomplishment with something that they enjoy in nature, exploring nature, giving them questions, asking questions, and we're studying, taking a walk, doing our tests outside, something that just, brings outside and match it with their learning styles. As we prepare to close, I'm going to make this my last one. Okay. We might Oh, okay. We can finish up.
Okay.
We can finish up. Okay, it says benefits of knowing learning styles for the students. Better choices, better selection of work environment, targeting of needs, needing improvement, and better study techniques. You can always their first week of class say, hey, I want to give y'all a personality test, and you learn their personalities, but you can also give them make a test about their learning style and say, do you understand how you learn? I'm pulling information this week because I'm getting ready to teach you, and man, I want to make sure I'm reaching you. That's going to really build confidence with those students in you, because they're going to say, my teacher really want to make sure that she's getting the information to me how I learn. And for those students that may have been stumped with certain learning styles, you're basically giving them a freedom to just relax and not be ashamed of the way they learn, because they don't learn like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to educator, we're gonna create better lessons. That's it. We teach better. Okay. And we can find the student weaknesses, and instead of calling them out on those, we learn to teach into their strengths. So we turn those weaknesses into strengths. How to identify preferred intelligence, pose a problem, build a model, learning style questionnaire. So here we go here. This is just a questionnaire. So we'll look up a questionnaire next week. I'm gonna see can I find one, and this we may give the students this questionnaire sometime next week. Developing intelligence, which means they're at what age do you start to see their personalities come through? And my niece is 5 now, and a lot of stuff is coming through. And I told my sister, leave her alone. This is so important. Don't tell her to shut up, because she's learning words. She's learning how to express herself. She's coming to her own personalities, and we have to be mindful, because sometimes they can stunt the growth, personality growth of some students, some learners, especially young people, when we don't let them express themselves. So, there's a good way to express it and a bad way. If I can get, now, I'm the auntie. Yes, I did teach her some things because I'm the auntie. And I thought, we were learning it. I was preparing her in the summer for going to kindergarten. I was like, yeah, you're not going to let nobody push over on you. And when somebody do this, then I want you to do this. She literally was saying, okay, give me more. I was like, what? You got to be a mischief child. You want me to keep giving you ways to, And sure enough, my sister said, I'm calling you when they called me to the office. My niece says, if you ask her something, I said, well, such and such, she'll say ABC, because I'm a boss. Period. Duh. I told her, I said, look, you can't use all your stuff in one time. You gotta pull it out. Let them respond, then you pull it out, So now she's using all her stuff at one time. And I said something about, was you going to church? She was like, yeah, duh, period. I'm like, oh my God, what have we done? Yeah. So, and I tell my son, I said, I'm the one that said, don't tell her not to do it. So I said, I'm trying to figure that out. So yeah, I'm trying to figure it out. I didn't know that she was going to cling to so much of what I was telling her. I was just trying to build her up. And yeah, so she's in kindergarten, and she has this mile a minute personality, and she just want to tell you, and she see things that she ain't never seen before. Woo. So I'm excited to see what this gonna be when she get 12, 13, or on down the road.
Fabulousness.
What you say?
Fabulousness.
Fabulous. Yes, yes. Cause she goes, I was out of town. She said, when are you coming home? I said, what? I don't expect a 5-year-old to be clocking me and asking me when I'm coming home. I'm just saying. Oh, I ain't seen you in a little bit. When you coming home? I said, wow. Okay. Yes, they says intelligence is not fixed, so it can be changed, it can be adapted. So at age 3 and under, they're low. Okay, they're learning. And then they go from 3 to 6, they develop verbal. So now they have they words are coming, visual, they want to see it, and rhythm with music. Okay, so when I say my niece is all of these, up to age 70, you're gonna develop bodily kinesthetic intelligence. You're always gonna be evolving up to a certain age 70. Can you imagine from 3 to 7? You're just evolving in your intelligence. So when people say, well, I don't know, that's just how I am, and you 30, no. You got about 40 more years to adapt.
Exactly.
40 more years. Yeah, you got about 40 more years. Everything you do can be changed. You can change that behavior, So that's even positive in the classroom. To someone come in and say, well, I just don't learn well. Yes, you do. It can be changed. You can learn to learn well. And it says no age limit. It's on interpersonal or intrapersonal. So you'll be able to work with people. It's not an age limit on how well you work with people. So I can work with people in groups, and it ain't no age. I can be 100 years old and still work well with people. Or interpersonal, it ain't no age limit. I'm gonna say, hey, look, I just want to worry about myself today. And logical mathematics, it is no age where you will not have understanding. You'll always want understanding. You'll always learn to adapt how to count and work well with numbers, and tasks and procedures. There's no age limit to that. So you can always change, even at 70, develop new learning styles and techniques. That's amazing to me. That's the highlight of this chapter to me, that at any age you can always learn more. You can always change behavior. Combining intelligence, most of us would probably do one intelligence, 5 to 75%. Addressing all the intelligence, you had a 100% success, everybody. But I'm gonna tell you, there's 8 intelligence. As a teacher, it may tire you out because your class developing, making sure everybody has something every day. You're trying to cover all 8 intelligence every day. That may tire you out. And I don't want the teacher to become burnt out. So we need to make sure our lessons touch at least 75, at least 50% of it. So at least 3 to 4 intelligence.
Okay.
Every class. So just say, what's your favorite thing to do in cosmetology?
Oh, you asking me?
Uh-huh.
Coloring, writing.
Okay. So let's talk about coloring. All right. So if coloring is your subject, in your mind, okay, I'm gonna teach coloring, but when we build our lesson plan, I need 4 out of 8 of these learning styles. I need to hit 4 out of 8 of these learning styles. The week I'm teaching coloring, I gotta hit at least 4. So you will say, I'm definitely gonna lecture, okay? And we got a procedure. So that's my logical right there, and my mathematical person, because I got steps. I'm gonna do. Let's demo it. That's visual. Okay, I got that. That's 2. And you may say, I'm gonna have the students work in groups and do color wheels. That's 3. Give me another one. You can say we're gonna do our study time outside. That's 4.
Okay.
Okay, so you got to touch in that lesson. Out of the 8, I hit 4 of them. I hit 4 of them, and out of that 4, everybody normally will have get everything. And then weekly, you want to be able to touch the intelligence weekly. So one day you may do another one, and then somebody you may pull them to a side, maybe give them a little one-on-one or something of that nature. That's all intelligence. And that's combining intelligence. So as we wrap it up, Master educators have the opportunity to deliver content that reaches all intelligence, allowing learners to use their full brain power. We're doing it, but we have not put a name to it. And so now we're putting name to the way that we're teaching and how we're teaching and what we're teaching. And you want those students to have the why questions and the what and the how. We are touching their intelligence as well while they're doing it. It's important to instill self-worth and love of learning in students. You want students to always love to learn. This is why I tell them always become a student. Okay? We did not discuss us going to New York, but I'm gonna really push that they go to New York in March. And then they want to do the bathhouse. I want them to experience what they're there for, you know? And so that's amazing there. And then in retrospect, okay, in retrospect, we're gonna list and explain the 4 important steps in learning. List the 8 distant intelligence. We're always going to review those intelligence and list the benefits of identifying learning styles for students. And that's it. But we're going to come back to 4 all the time because that's one of the key ones that we will take in our classrooms every day.
Yes.
And, you know, if you're a director of a school, you're going to make sure your teachers touch on those learning styles every day, which means the students should not be just sitting there not doing anything. Even though there's a lecture, the initial class at learning is done as far as them sitting and listening. Now we need to build a class with activities and games and practical assignments to make sure that learning is just continuously retained. So what they heard, now they need to see it. Now they need to touch it. Now they need to get in a group and discuss it. And so it's just the fundamentals of teaching and the fundamentals of learning. And so that's it. Congratulations. We just completed chapter 4. I'm going to drop it in the group next week. I'm going to send you a study guide on 3 and 4. But next week, we're going to start off on 5, and I'll send you a new list of our presentations, the next 4, okay?
All right. Thank you.
All right. You have a great and amazing weekend. And until next time.